Mendelian principle inheritance biology. Inheritance biology, often known as genetics, is an important aspect of modern biology which deals with the unidirectional transmission of a specific character or a trait between the generations. Today, we know these are genes, specific portion of DNA in a chromosome, which regulates transmission of all these characters from one generation to another. In most of the cases, the problem in transmission of these genes or modification in genes regulating specific characters leads to the altered physiological and pathological conditions. For a simple instance, we can say an altered expression of a genes regulating the hemoglobin production can lead to normocytic anemia. There are many other examples which are caused due to this kind of alterations. Thus, studying genetics is a very crucial, and by applying different concepts of genetics in today's science, we make our existence better in earth. Eugenics. According to our previous knowledge, each character say size of the pea plant has two traits, either tall or dwarf, determined by the expression of different forms of genes known as alleles. Under normal conditions, there are two alleles of genes, that is dominant allele, also called a wild type, and recessive alleles, also called as a mutant type allele. The alleles are mostly formed by means of mutations, any changes in genes which can be spontaneous or specifically induced, and each of the alleles resides in the specific region of the chromosomes known as locus cytologically. When we are discussing about the genetics, the first thing that we should consider is the law of inheritance given by the famous Australian scientist John Gregor Mendel. He was the person who first understood that all the characters, those transmitted from one generation to other, can only occurs through the germ cells gametes. He also concluded that the appearance of all these characters known as phenotypes in an individual is dependent on the genetic constitutions of individual known as a genotype. Mendel did extensive crossing among pea plant Pisum sativum and came up with different conclusions. He had chosen pea plant because of its different contrasting characters and a short life cycle. Initially, Mendel failed many times because of faulty methodologies, but further he took many precautions and carefully did the experiments, which led him to the success. His principles of heredity or inheritance, 1867, initially did not get popularity, but it was reformulated when Hugo de Veris and other colleagues worked on this in 1900. Principles of inheritance. The principle of inheritance can be grouped into three subheadings such as law of dominant, law of segregation, law of independent assortment, law of dominance. According to this law, a cross between a homozygous dominant individuals and a homozygous recessive individuals will always give rise to an individual expressing only dominant characters. That is, the effect of recessive alleles will be masked by the dominant alleles. For example, a monohybrid cross between the tall pea plant and a dwarf plant small t always give rise to the hybrid tall pea plant T small t in F1 generation. Here, the effect of recessive alleles small t was masked by the dominant allele, the T. Thus, all pea plants are only produced. To law of segregation. According to this law, when two alleles are united due to the hybridization in the F1 generation, they don't blend or interact with each other. They again segregate when F1 forms the gametes. For example, a monohybrid cross between the tall pea plant T and dwarf pea plant small t always give rise to a hybrid tall pea plant T in F1 generation. But when F1 plants are self-crossed and F2 generations are produced, the characters are found to be expressed in 3:1 ratio, that is 3 dominant and 1 recessive. This indicates that the recessive alleles were not blended with the dominant but again segregated during the gametogenesis. Later, it was found that the cytological events responsible for this kind of segregation was anaphase movement, the sister chromatid separation during the cell divisions. 3. Law of independent assortment. According to this law, when alleles of two different genes segregate in the gamete, they sort independently of each other and can combine in any form. This can be illustrated by dihybrid cross. For example, when Mendel crossed pea plant with two different contrasting characters such as yellow colored round seed capital Y, capital Y, capital R, and green colored wrinkled seeds small y, small r, all the F1 progenies were found to be hybridized yellow colored round seed producing plants capital Y, capital R, small r. When these F1 plants were self-crossed, the four different types of seed-producing plants are produced in the ratio of 9:3:3:1 instead of 3:1. Mendel noted that out of those four types, two were completely new were appeared because of independent assortment of alleles. When the cytological causes behind this phenotype was investigated, it was found that crossing over, which is a crucial part of mitosis 1, was responsible for the independent assortment.